The no contact rule, the power of silence and self-respect. Let me tell you something about silence. It's not weak. It's not passive. Silence is the strongest response you can give when the world expects you to crumble. Silence says more than words ever could. And in the aftermath of a breakup, silence isn't just a choice. It's a weapon. The moment she walks away, whether she made the decision or you did, she expects one thing: your reaction. She expects you to chase, to plead, to fight for her attention like your life depends on it. Because that's what most men do. They give away their power, their dignity, their sense of control, all in the desperate hope that it might make her stay. But you're not most men. You don't beg, you don't chase. You don't give her the satisfaction of knowing she can dictate your emotions. No. When the separation comes, you go silent. And in that silence, something incredible happens. She doesn't feel relief. Not really. At first, she tells herself that she's in control, that walking away was the right decision, that you'll be the one to reach out first. She convinces herself that this is temporary, that you're just waiting for the right moment to break the silence and make your grand declaration. But as the hours pass, and then the days, a seed of doubt begins to grow. She checks her phone, nothing. She opens her messages, scrolling back through your old conversations. Still nothing. She waits, and with each passing moment, your absence becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. Here's what happens next. She begins to wonder. At first, it's subtle, a fleeting thought she tries to dismiss. Why hasn't he called? Does he even care? Was I not important enough? Those thoughts grow louder, more insistent. She starts to replay the breakup in her mind over and over, dissecting every word, every moment, every choice. She searches for clues, for answers, for anything to explain why you haven't reached out, and you say nothing. This is your power, this is your strength. In a world where men trip over themselves to validate a woman's decisions, your silence stands apart. It isn't anger, it isn't revenge, it's self-respect. But let's be honest, this isn't just about her, this is about you. The breakup didn't just shatter the relationship, it cracked the foundation you stood on. The immediate aftermath is a battlefield, and the first enemy you must conquer is yourself. Your mind will betray you. It will tell you to call her, to fix things, to chase after her like she's the last woman on earth. It will tell you lies, whisper that if you just explain yourself, everything will be fine. But you must resist, because every time you reach out, every time you let her see that you're still waiting, you give her power. Power to define the terms of your worth. Power to keep you tied to the past. Power to walk away without consequences. Silence is the antidote to that chaos. When you choose silence, you're not just cutting her off. You're cutting yourself off from the weakness inside you. You're saying, I will not be controlled by my emotions. I will not beg for validation. I will not hand over my dignity in the hope that she might give me crumbs of attention. Instead, you focus on what matters, rebuilding. You hit the gym, you lift the weights, you push yourself harder than you ever have before. With every rep, every drop of sweat, every burning muscle, you remind yourself that you are still strong, still capable, still whole. You dive into your work, setting goals that have nothing to do with her. You pick up a book, learn a skill, do something, anything that pulls you forward instead of dragging you back. Because here's the truth. The no contact rule isn't about her. It's about you. It's about reclaiming your power, your time, your energy. It's about proving to yourself that you can stand on your own, that you don't need her to validate your existence. And as the days turn into weeks, something incredible happens. The silence that once felt unbearable becomes your greatest ally. It teaches you patience, resilience, discipline. It reminds you that your value was never tied to her. It was always within you. But for her, the silence becomes something else entirely. This is just the beginning, the realization of silence. And now the silence begins to work its magic. Not on you, but on her. You've done the unthinkable. You've gone quiet. And let me tell you, that silence, it's louder than any argument, any angry text, or any plea for reconciliation. It's a void, a gaping absence she didn't prepare for. At first, she thought it was temporary. He's just giving me space. That's what she told herself. It gave her comfort, let her believe she was still in control. But the hours turned into days, and the days into weeks. And now that comforting lie has started to crack. Your silence doesn't feel like space anymore. It feels like distance. Here's the truth. She's not just missing your words. She's starting to feel the weight of your absence. Every time she picks up her phone and doesn't see your name, it stings. Every time she checks her notifications and realizes you're not there, it plants a seed of doubt. She tells herself she's fine, that this is what she wanted, that you'll come around eventually. But deep down, she's beginning to realize that she underestimated you. Because here's what most men do. They crack. They can't stand the silence, so they send a text. Something simple at first. Hey, how are you? Just to test the waters. And when that doesn't work, they send more. Longer messages, emotional confessions, desperate pleas for closure. Every one of those messages gives her power. Power to ignore you, power to dismiss you, power to confirm that walking away was the right decision. But you're different. You've given her nothing to latch onto, nothing to twist, nothing to control. And now she's the one feeling the void. She starts to replay the breakup in her mind over and over again. At first, she focuses on her decision, her reasons, her justifications. But the more she replays it, the more she notices something else. The way you didn't react, the way you didn't chase. And that realization, it's unsettling. Why hasn't he called? Does he even care? Was I wrong? These thoughts are small at first, like whispers in the back of her mind. But silence has a way of amplifying whispers, turning them into echoes that she can't ignore. And what about you? What's happening on your side of the silence? The temptation is still there, isn't it? The urge to reach out, to check in, to send that one text that might bring her back. It creeps in during the quiet moments when your mind starts to wander, when you wonder what she's thinking. But you hold the line, because you know that silence isn't just for her, it's for you. It's a test of your discipline, your self-control, your ability to prioritize your own growth over your emotions. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, you're proving something to yourself. You are stronger than the pull of your feelings. You go to the gym. You work harder. You focus on becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase anyone. And with each passing day, the silence becomes easier to hold. Not because it hurts less, but because you're growing stronger. For her, the silence is becoming unbearable. She doesn't want to admit it yet, but your absence is starting to feel like a mistake. She expected you to fold, to run after her, to prove her right. Instead, you've done the opposite. And now she's left with questions she can't answer, doubts she can't shake, and a silence that refuses to give her peace. This is the realization of silence. It's not emptiness. It's power. And that power, it's just getting started. The psychological shift. The silence is no longer just something she notices. It's something she feels, deeply, sharply, in every quiet moment that used to be filled with your presence. Her mind is no longer calm. It's restless, spinning in circles, replaying the breakup and everything that came before it. At first, it was just curiosity, a fleeting thought. Why hasn't he said anything? But now it's doubt. Doubt is a dangerous thing. It creeps into the cracks of confidence, widening them until they become fractures. And in the void your silence has created, doubt is taking over. Did I make a mistake? Was I wrong to walk away? What if he's better off without me? This is where the psychological shift begins. At first, she tried to justify her decision. She told herself she was right, that the breakup was necessary, that you'd come crawling back eventually. But your silence hasn't given her the chance to be right. It hasn't given her anything. And now she's left with nothing but questions. She starts to analyze everything, your behavior, her behavior, the relationship as a whole. But no matter how much she overthinks, there's one thing she can't escape. The fact that you're not chasing her. That's the shift. When you don't react, when you don't reach out, when you don't play the role she expected you to play, the power dynamic flips. Suddenly, she's the one feeling uncertain, out of control, and left behind. And what are you doing while this shift happens? You're working. Not on her, not on the relationship, but on yourself. Because this isn't just about her. It's about you becoming the kind of man who doesn't rely on someone else for validation. You're in the gym, pushing your body to its limits. Each rep, each set, each drop of sweat is a reminder that you're still in control of your life. You're sharpening your mind, reading, learning, leveling up in ways you didn't think possible. You're not doing it for her. You're doing it for you. And here's the irony. The more you focus on yourself, the more she feels your absence. The stronger you become, the more she notices the void you left behind. Here's what's going through her mind now. She's starting to question not just the breakup, but her own worth. At first, she thought she had the upper hand. She believed walking away would put her in control. But now, as the silence stretches on, she's starting to feel powerless. Your absence has made her realize something she didn't want to admit. She needed your attention more than she thought. She starts to wonder if you've moved on, if you're happier without her, if someone else has taken her place. These thoughts aren't fleeting anymore. They're consuming. And you stay steady. You don't give in to the temptation to check in, to send that one text to see how she's doing. Because you know that the psychological shift is only possible if you hold the line. Silence isn't just about withholding words. It's about maintaining control. Control over your emotions, your actions, your life. Every day you stay silent is a day you reclaim a piece of yourself. And for her, every day of silence is a day where the doubt grows louder, the regret grows deeper, and the power continues to shift. The silence is working, but the shift is only the beginning. The power of absence. Absence is a strange thing. It's not tangible, not something you can hold or measure. But when it's felt, it's undeniable. Your absence, quiet and steady, has now become the loudest thing in her world. She thought she could walk away from you and feel free. She thought losing you would be easy. But what she didn't understand, what she's only beginning to realize, is that absence isn't just about what's missing. It's about what remains. And what remains? The memory of you. Here's the truth about absence. It forces people to confront reality. When you're no longer there, your presence doesn't just disappear. It lingers. In the moments where she once had your attention, there's now a void. In the spaces where your voice used to fill the air, there's only silence. In her daily life, in her thoughts, in her routines, there's a U-shaped hole she cannot ignore. She feels it everywhere. She notices it when her phone buzzes and it's not you. When she scrolls through her messages and sees the last conversation growing colder by the day. When she goes to sleep at night and realizes the comfort of knowing you were there is gone. Absence, when done right, is a teacher. But your absence isn't just about her, it's about you. Because absence is power, And power isn't something you chase or demand. It's something you command. By choosing to step back, by choosing silence, you've taken control of the narrative. You've shown her, without a single word, that your value isn't something she can toss aside without consequence. You're not just someone she can walk away from and forget. You're someone who makes an impact, someone whose absence demands to be felt. Here's what's happening in her mind now. The void you left behind is growing. At first it was subtle, a quiet annoyance, a question of why you hadn't reached out. But now, it's becoming unbearable. She's starting to realize that you weren't just a part of her life, you were a part of her stability, a source of attention, validation, comfort. And now that it's gone, she feels unmoored, like she's drifting without an anchor. This isn't what she expected. She thought your absence would be fleeting, something she could shrug off. Instead, it's become a constant presence, a reminder of what she gave up. And as that realization sets in, so does regret. And what are you doing during all of this? You're thriving. You've taken the energy you once poured into her and redirected it into yourself. You've become stronger, sharper, more focused. Every day you hit the gym, every goal you achieve, every step forward you take. You're building a version of yourself that doesn't just survive without her. It flourishes. And here's the beauty of absence. The stronger you become, the more she feels it. When she sees you thriving, whether through mutual friends, social media, or pure intuition, it deepens the void she feels. It forces her to confront a truth she doesn't want to admit. You didn't need her to be whole. The power of absence isn't just in what's missing, it's in what's growing. Your silence, your composure, your growth, it all sends a message. Not a loud, desperate message, but a quiet, unshakable one. I am better without you, and if you want to return, it will be on my terms. She feels it now. The void you left behind is no longer just a space, it's a weight, a constant reminder of what she lost, and what she may never get back. But the lesson of absence is not yet complete. The emotional roller coaster. Now, the silence has sunk in, and the absence you created has taken root. What started as a void in her life has now transformed into a storm, a chaotic whirlwind of emotions that she cannot escape. Her mind is no longer calm, no longer composed. It's a battlefield, and the enemy she's facing isn't you, it's herself. At first she tried to stay strong. She told herself the silence didn't bother her, that she didn't need you, that this was what she wanted. But that resolve, it's cracking. Her emotions are taking over now, hitting her in waves. One moment she's angry at you for not reaching out, angry at herself for caring, angry at the situation she thought she controlled. The next moment she's sad, grieving the connection she took for granted, the comfort she no longer has, the moments with you that she didn't realize were precious until they were gone. Then comes the nostalgia. Nostalgia is the cruelest emotion of all because it doesn't just remind her of the good times, it amplifies them. The laughter, the shared dreams, the quiet moments when everything felt right, those memories come flooding back, unbidden and relentless. She tries to suppress them, but they grow stronger with each passing day. Here's what makes this emotional roller coaster so powerful. It's entirely internal. You're not feeding it. You're not chasing her. You're not pleading for her to come back. You're not reminding her of what she lost. You don't have to. Your silence is doing all the work for you. Every wave of anger, sadness, and nostalgia is a reminder of what you represented in her life. And the harder she tries to dismiss you, the more her emotions remind her of your absence. But let's talk about you for a moment. While she's riding this roller coaster, your job isn't to wait or hope for her to reach out. Your job is to focus entirely on yourself. This is where discipline comes in. You wake up early. You hit the gym. Not just to pass the time, but to rebuild yourself. To create a version of yourself that's stronger, better, and untouchable. You set goals, not as a distraction, but as a declaration. I am my own priority now. And here's the beauty of your growth. It creates a mirror. When she sees you thriving, whether through mutual connections or the whispers of her own insecurities, it forces her to compare. She starts to wonder, why does he seem better without me? Why is he thriving while I'm stuck in this emotional storm? Was I the one holding him back? That comparison is brutal, and it only fuels the roller coaster she's already on. Here's what she's thinking now. Her emotions are swirling, her doubts are growing, and your silence is still there. Steady, unrelenting, undeniable. She thought the breakup would bring her clarity, but instead, it's brought chaos. She thought she would feel free, but instead she feels lost. This emotional roller coaster is not something she can escape. And as it intensifies, she begins to realize something she's been avoiding since the silence began. She underestimated you. But the storm isn't over yet. The roller coaster is still climbing, and the hardest emotions are yet to come. The curiosity phase. Curiosity. It's a slow burn at first. A quiet whisper in her mind that grows louder with every passing day. By now, the silence isn't just something she notices. It's something she feels. Deeply. Constantly. And that absence, it's become unbearable. She's desperate for answers. At first, she tried to distract herself. She threw herself into work, hobbies, friends, anything to keep her mind from drifting back to you. But no matter what she did, there was always a moment of quiet. And in that quiet, the questions returned. Why hasn't he reached out? What is he thinking? Is he even hurting? Or has he already moved on? These questions are relentless. Here's what makes curiosity so powerful. It thrives in uncertainty. You haven't given her anything. No texts, no calls, no social media posts to dissect. You've left her in the dark, and that darkness is driving her mad. She checks her phone constantly, scrolling through old messages, hoping to find some clue, some answer to the void you've created. But there's nothing, and the silence, it becomes a mirror. A mirror that reflects her own doubts, her own fears, her own insecurities. She begins to wonder if she truly meant as much to you as she thought. She starts to question her value in your eyes, replaying moments in her mind, searching for signs she missed. Was I wrong to leave? Why hasn't he said anything? Is he better off without me? Curiosity is no longer just a feeling. It's an obsession. And what are you doing while she spirals? You're living your life. You're focused, disciplined, and unbothered. Your days are filled with purpose. Gym sessions, new goals, self-improvement. You're not looking back because you've chosen to move forward. And here's the thing. She knows it. Whether through mutual friends, social media, or just the quiet intuition that comes from knowing someone deeply, she can sense that you're thriving, and that knowledge only deepens her curiosity. How is he doing this? Why isn't he struggling like I am? Does he even miss me? Curiosity is a cruel master. The more she wonders, the more she craves answers. And the more she craves, the more she realizes that the only way to get them is to break the silence herself. But let me be clear. This is not your cue to reach out. The curiosity phase is not about you giving her closure or satisfying her need for answers. It's about holding your ground and letting the silence do its work. Because curiosity, when left unchecked, becomes something more. It becomes longing. Longing to hear your voice, to see your name on her phone, to feel the comfort of your attention once again. Longing to know that she still matters, that she hasn't been replaced, that there's still a chance to fix what's broken. And that longing, it's the next step in her journey. The silence is almost too much for her now. The questions are too loud, the doubts too heavy, the absence too real. But the storm of curiosity hasn't yet reached its peak. The what-if phase. What if? Two simple words, but together they hold the weight of regret, longing, and doubt. This is the phase where the silence becomes unbearable, where your absence feels less like a void and more like a mistake she can't ignore. She's no longer just curious. She's haunted. Haunted by the possibilities she can't control, the questions she can't answer, the scenarios playing over and over in her mind. What if he's moved on? What if he's happier without me? What if I was wrong? And here's the brutal truth. The what-if phase is not about logic. It's not about her reasoning through the breakup or finding clarity. It's about the emotional storm your silence has unleashed. A storm she can no longer escape. Here's what's happening in her mind now. She starts to question everything. Every decision, every word, every moment that led to this silence. She replays the breakup endlessly, trying to make sense of it, trying to justify her choices. But the more she thinks about it, the more the doubt grows. The what-if phase forces her to confront the reality of her actions, not just the breakup itself, but what came after. What if I underestimated him? What if I pushed him too far? What if he's realized he's better off without me? These thoughts are relentless. They come when she's alone, when her guard is down, when there's nothing to distract her from the silence you've maintained. And that silence? It's not just a lack of words anymore. It's a presence, a reminder of your strength, your composure, your ability to walk away without looking back. But this phase isn't just about her. It's about you continuing to hold the line. By now, you've rebuilt parts of yourself. You've poured your energy into self-improvement, into becoming the kind of man who doesn't just survive without her. He thrives. You've hit the gym relentlessly, pushed yourself in your work, and rediscovered the strength that was always within you. And here's the beauty of it. You didn't do it for her. You did it for you. And yet the stronger you become, the more she feels it. Whether she sees it directly or senses it through the growing distance, your growth creates a comparison she can't ignore. What if he doesn't need me anymore? What if someone else sees his value now? What if I was the one holding him back? These thoughts aren't fleeting. They're consuming. Here's what you need to understand. The what-if phase is the turning point. This is where her emotions reach their peak. The anger has faded, the distractions have failed, and all that's left is the nagging realization that you've moved forward while she's been stuck in the past. This is where the balance of power fully shifts, because now it's no longer about whether you'll reach out. It's about whether she even has the right to reach out to you. But the silence isn't ready to break yet. The what-if phase is only the beginning of what she'll feel next. The longing is growing, the regret is deepening, and the silence is still doing its work. The growing regret. Regret is a slow poison. It doesn't hit all at once, it seeps in drip by drip until it's all consuming. By now, the questions, the doubt, and the what-ifs have paved the way for something deeper, something heavier. Regret. At first, she tried to fight it. She told herself she made the right decision, that the breakup was necessary, that you would eventually reach out and restore the balance she once felt so secure in. But your silence has shattered that illusion. Now, she's beginning to feel the full weight of her choices. Here's what's going on in her mind. Regret isn't just about missing you. It's about realizing what she gave up. She starts to see you differently now. Not as the man she left, but as the man she underestimated. She replays the moments when you were there for her. The times when you listened, supported, and stood by her side. The things she once took for granted now feel irreplaceable. But it's not just about the memories. It's about the absence of your presence. Your silence has made her confront something she didn't want to admit. That she depended on you. Not in a superficial way, but in the deep, unspoken sense that your attention, Your validation, your respect gave her a sense of worth. And now she feels the void. Regret isn't just sadness, it's self-reflection. She begins to question her own behavior, her own decisions, her own role in the breakup. She starts to see the moments where she could have done better, could have chosen differently, could have treated you with the respect you always deserved. And that regret, it's amplified by your silence. If you had chased her, begged for her back, or tried to explain yourself, she could have justified her actions. She could have convinced herself that she was right, that walking away was the best decision. But your silence gives her no room for justification. It forces her to sit with her own choices, to confront the reality that you didn't crumble, you didn't chase, and you didn't give her the validation she was expecting. And what about you? By now, you're stronger. The man you've become during this silence is not the same man who was left behind. You've rebuilt yourself piece by piece through discipline, effort, and unwavering focus. You've turned your pain into fuel, your doubts into determination, your silence into strength. And here's the beauty of your growth. It doesn't just affect you, it affects her. Every step forward you take, every improvement you make, every ounce of strength you build serves as a reminder to her of what she lost. She begins to realize that you're not just surviving without her, you're thriving. In that comparison, it's devastating. Why is he doing better than me? Was I the problem? Did I lose someone I'll never get back? These thoughts aren't fleeting anymore. They're persistent, growing stronger with each passing day. Here's the truth about regret. It's not about you chasing her. It's about her chasing the version of you she took for granted. Regret forces her to acknowledge the value you brought to her life, not because you demanded it, but because your absence proved it. And now she's left with a choice: reach out or let you go. But the silence isn't ready to break yet. The regret is still growing, and its work isn't done. The reach out, and then it happens. After all the doubt, the questions, the storm of emotions, she finally does what you've been waiting for. She reaches out. Maybe it's subtle at first, a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" Maybe it's more direct, an acknowledgement of her regret, or a need to reconnect. Whatever form it takes, it's a moment that carries far more weight than she realizes. This isn't just a message, it's a surrender. Her reaching out is an admission, whether she knows it or not. An admission that the silence broke her, that your absence was louder than her pride, that she can no longer bear the distance between you. Here's what's going on in her mind. She's been wrestling with her emotions for weeks now. The regret, the curiosity, the longing. It's all come to a head. And with every unanswered question, every memory of you, every moment spent imagining your life without her, she's realized something she didn't want to admit. She misses you. But it's more than that. She doesn't just miss you. She misses the man you were, the man you've become, the man she now sees as stronger than she ever realized. Her reaching out isn't just about curiosity or closure. It's about hope. Hope that the door isn't completely closed, that there's still a chance to fix what was broken, that the man she once underestimated might still be within her reach. And what about you? This is the moment you've been preparing for. Every step you've taken during the silence, every gym session, every goal accomplished, every moment of growth has been leading to this. But now you face a choice. Do you respond? Do you let her back in? Do you reestablish the connection she's now desperate for? Or do you hold the line, continuing on your path without her? The answer isn't simple, and it shouldn't be. This moment isn't about revenge or proving a point. It's about knowing your worth and deciding what's best for you. If you choose to respond, here's what you must remember. Your response isn't about her feelings. It's about your boundaries. You don't fall back into old patterns. Don't rush to rebuild what was broken. Don't hand her the power she once held over you. Instead, you remain calm, composed, and deliberate. You let her see the man you've become, not the man she left. You set the tone, re-establishing the dynamic on your terms. And if she's truly learned the lesson your silence taught, she'll respect those terms. If you choose not to respond, here's what you must remember. Silence isn't just a reaction, it's a choice. By choosing not to re-engage, you're not punishing her. You're prioritizing yourself. You're acknowledging that your growth, your peace, your future are more important than reopening a door that might lead back to pain. Either way, you've already won. Because the reach out isn't just about her. It's about what your silence has proven. That you are a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't crumble, who doesn't let someone else define his worth. You've shown her that your presence is a privilege, not a given. And that respect is the price of admission to your life. The reach out is the final piece of the puzzle, but it's not the end. It's a beginning. The rebuilt dynamics. This is where everything changes. The reach out wasn't the end of the silence. It was the result of it. Your silence didn't just teach her a lesson. It redefined the terms of how she sees you, how she values you, and how she approaches you. Now, with her message sent, the power dynamic has shifted entirely. But what happens next? That's entirely up to you. If you decide to re-engage, this isn't about picking up where you left off. The man you've become in this silence isn't the same man she left. The dynamic has to be rebuilt, on your terms, with your boundaries firmly in place. Here's what she's feeling now. She's walking on uncertain ground. Reaching out was hard enough. Now she's waiting to see how you'll respond. And whether she admits it or not, there's a newfound respect for you. She thought you would break, thought you would chase, thought you would fall apart. But you didn't. Instead, you grew stronger. This respect, it's not just about what you did, it's about what you didn't do. You didn't let her dictate your value. You didn't give her the validation she expected. You held the line, and in doing so, you forced her to see you in a new light. If you choose to move forward with her, this is the moment to set the boundaries you lacked before. You don't let her step back into your life on her terms. You create a new dynamic that reflects the man you've become. This means making it clear that respect is non-negotiable, that your goals and growth come first, and that any relationship moving forward must be built on mutual effort. And if she truly regrets what happened, if she truly values you, she'll rise to meet those standards. But if she doesn't, if her message was born out of temporary regret or a fleeting need for attention, you'll see it soon enough. And in that case, you'll have the clarity to walk away, knowing you've lost nothing. If you choose not to re-engage, the lesson of silence becomes permanent. Your decision not to respond isn't about holding a grudge. It's about prioritizing yourself. You've learned that your value doesn't depend on her acknowledgement, that your growth doesn't require her validation, and that your future doesn't need to include her. By walking away, you cement the lesson she learned in your absence, that your time, energy, and attention are precious, and that losing them is a consequence she'll carry long after the silence has ended. And here's the final truth. The no-contact rule was never about getting her back. It was about getting yourself back. Whether she stays in your life or becomes a memory, you've already won. You've reclaimed your power, rebuilt your strength, and proven to yourself that your worth isn't tied to anyone else. She'll carry the memory of your silence, the lesson it taught, the respect it demanded for a long time. But you'll walk forward, stronger, wiser, and untouchable.